the time The Summer I Turned Pretty reaches Season 3, Episode 9, it feels like the show has settled into a familiar, frustrating rhythm. Every glance, every pause, every sigh seems designed to funnel sympathy toward Jeremiah, whether he's earned it or not. Episode 9 doesn't just lean into this pattern, it drowns in it. What should have been a sharp, emotionally complex chapter instead becomes an exhausting exercise in collective pity, as if the show itself is afraid to let Jeremiah face the full weight of his choices. At its best, The Summer I Turned Pretty has always been about emotional imbalance, first love, grief, jealousy, and the painful process of growing up. But Episode 9 crosses a line, turning emotional imbalance into narrative favoritism. Everyone tiptoes around Jeremiah. Everyone cushions his feelings. Everyone frames him as the wounded party, even when the situation is far more complicated than the show wants to admit. And frankly, I'm tired of it. The problem with Jeremiah as the eternal victim. Jeremiah has always been written as the sunny brother, the one who jokes through pain, smiles through heartbreak, and pretends everything is fine until it very obviously is. That complexity once made him compelling. But Season 3, Episode 9 strips away that nuance and replaces it with something far less interesting: pity. The episode positions Jeremiah as a fragile emotional centerpiece. Characters speak to him softly, glance at him nervously, and frame every conflict around how it might affect him. Even when he makes questionable decisions or outright mistakes, the narrative rushes to soften the blow. Someone else is always there to explain him, excuse him, or emotionally babysit him. This isn't empathy anymore, it's indulgence. Good storytelling allows characters to be wrong without being villainized. Great storytelling allows them to sit in that wrongness long enough to learn something. Episode 9 refuses to do that for Jeremiah. Instead, it wraps him in narrative bubble wrap and hopes the audience mistakes that for depth. Belly's emotional shrinkage. One of the most frustrating side effects of this Jeremiah-centric pity parade is what it does to Belly. Episode 9 shrinks her emotional space until it barely exists. Every reaction she has, every moment of confusion, guilt, or frustration, is framed through how it affects Jeremiah. If Belly hesitates, she's cruel. If she pulls back, she's heartless. If she expresses doubt, she's hurting him. What the episode fails to acknowledge is that Belly is also allowed to be overwhelmed. She is allowed to change. She is allowed to struggle under the weight of expectations placed on her by two brothers, a complicated history, and a future she doesn't fully understand yet. Instead of honoring that complexity, Episode 9 treats Belly like a supporting character in Jeremiah's emotional arc. Her interior life becomes secondary, almost inconvenient. And for a show that once centered so powerfully on a young girl's coming of age, that feels like a betrayal of its own foundation. Conrad's absence is loud. Perhaps the most telling aspect of Episode 9 is how Conrad's emotional presence looms even when he's not the focus. The episode seems almost allergic to letting Conrad's pain breathe. While Jeremiah's suffering is highlighted, narrated, and repeatedly validated, Conrad's is either implied or sidelined. This imbalance doesn't just skew the love triangle, it flattens it. The show wants us to feel bad for Jeremiah, but it doesn't trust us enough to draw our own conclusions. Instead, it stacks the deck, hoping sheer repetition of pity will win us over. Ironically, this strategy backfires. The more the episode insists on Jeremiah's victimhood, the more it invites scrutiny. And under scrutiny, his actions don't always align with the sympathy he's given. When compassion becomes manipulation. There's a thin line between compassion and manipulation, and Episode 9 crosses it more than once. The music swells at just the right moments. The camera lingers on Jeremiah's wounded expressions. Dialogue circles around his pain like it's sacred ground. These are storytelling tools, but here, they're overused to the point of emotional coercion. The episode isn't asking us to understand Jeremiah, it's telling us we must feel sorry for him. And when a show starts dictating emotions instead of earning them, it loses trust. The irony is that Jeremiah doesn't need this level of protection. He's at his most interesting when he's messy, conflicted, and even a little selfish. By refusing to let him be fully accountable, Episode 9 robs him of growth. The cost of never letting him hurt. Pain is not the enemy of character development, it's the engine of it. By insulating Jeremiah from real emotional consequences, the show stalls his arc. He doesn't move forward, he just circles the same wound, endlessly pitied but never truly challenged. Meanwhile, other characters are forced to absorb the discomfort. Belly carries guilt that isn't entirely hers. Conrad carries silence. Even the audience is asked to carry emotional labor the story itself refuses to distribute fairly. Episode 9 feels less like a chapter in a coming-of-age story and more like a plea. Please feel bad for him. After 3 seasons, that plea should no longer be necessary. Final thoughts. Sympathy fatigue is real. By the end of the summer, I turned Pretty Season 3, Episode 9. I didn't feel moved. I felt drained. Not because Jeremiah's pain isn't real, but because the show refuses to let anyone else's pain coexist with it. Sympathy fatigue is real. When a narrative overprotects one character at the expense of all others, it stops feeling honest. Episode 9 could have been a turning point, a moment of reckoning, accountability, or emotional clarity. Instead, it doubles down on pity mistaking softness for substance. Jeremiah deserves complexity, not coddling. Belly deserves autonomy, not guilt. And the audience deserves a story brave enough to let its characters hurt, fail, and grow without forcing us to choose sides through emotional manipulation. At this point, I don't hate Jeremiah. I just wish the show would stop telling me how sorry I'm supposed to feel for him and start letting him be fully human instead.